Steve Colescott here for Elite FTS. And one of the fun things about the office is we get people that pop in unexpectedly, and a lot of times it's a nice, pleasant surprise. We have Bob Wahl here with us, who some of the older lifters or historically adept lifters will remember Bob. He not only had a number of world records, but he also mentored some people, including this up-and-coming young man. Bob, tell us a little bit about your past history and some of your records.
Well, actually, I started out in a weight game when I was actually 16 years old with a guy named Jerry Bell and George Crawford, two of the great lifters back then. And I started out and I had a fun time with it. Got pretty serious. Finally, started breaking some national records and stuff, and then I finally made the worlds and broke some world records. And I kind of hooked up with Dave here a little bit over at the firm, Jim Momedy's gym, over on the east side of Toledo.
Okay.
And tried to help him out a little bit.
And what weight class were you in, and what were some of the numbers?
I was actually lifted 148 and 165. 148, I squatted 661, 335 bench, and a 661 deadlift.
Okay.
And then at 65, I did 760, 390, and 7.
Okay, and what federations were around back then?
USPF and
Okay.
IPF.
Okay.
There was one.
Yeah.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about when this young fella came into the gym.
Actually, Dave had some pretty technique when he first started out powerlifting. He squatted kind of bent over a little bit, so we had to correct that situation. Took care of that. His lift started going pretty good, and did a couple good meets. And then I graduated from college, and that was the last time I seen him.
Okay. Where were you at in your lifting career when you walked in there?
Right after, it was after a very short bodybuilding stint that I had. I started competing at Findlay Barbell Club, and Bob may not know this, but every now and again, very rarely, but once or twice a year, we make a trip up to train with, these guys and the group that they had, and it was the names are, I'm forgetting the names right now. Pat Farrell, Tom, narcotics cop from Findlay,
Tom Davis,
yeah,
yes.
and that was when you guys were all Cars Gym.
Cars Gym,
So we
yes,
go
the
up there. I mean,
Cars.
it was rare, but it was just enough to kind of spot check technique and so forth. So I was aware of Bob, and when I left Findlay Barbell to go to college, I was in Bowling Green. I couldn't really find anybody to powerlift with. My roommate happened to be a bodybuilder, so I figured, what the hell, we'll try this. Did it for a couple of years and realized it's not my thing. So then it was a matter of where do I go? Toledo had a lot of different gyms at the time to be able to train with people stronger than me, who were better than me. And found out that he was over at the Flex Connection of the firm. I don't know what it was called at the time.
It's called the firm.
So made my way over there because at the time my best squat was low sevens, and I was 242. You got a guy squatting 165, squatting 770, 770. It pisses you off a little bit, But I mean, he was a technician. His lifts were technically perfect, and I wanted to be around somebody that could help me in that regard, because even back then I realized, because it was always drilled in my head from day one, and that's probably why I'm such a technique Nazi now. Technique, because that was the fastest way to get stronger and the safest way to train. So I wanted to get in the group, and when I was training with Bob's group, there might have been 4 or 5 of us, just basic stuff, and I just kind of did what I was told to do. But it's the interesting thing that I was speaking with Bob about is right now there's like a fallback to everybody talking about how people trained back in the day. And I keep posting, I trained back in the day, and it wasn't just training hard, and lifting heavy shit. There was thought process that went into all this, and there was a lot of backing down, and I'll let Bob speak more about the training, because I really didn't do it. He planned it all out, and we just kind of rode along, and then if we were told to back down, we'd back down, or if we were told, if it was a single, do a triple. I mean, you just kind of did. I don't know how it was laid out, but it worked, and it worked in such a way that we were able to, fix technique
Technique.
and get stronger, and at the same time teach me, because I was a snot-nosed kid. I mean, I'll let him speak on that, but teach me a little bit more respect for the sport, which I don't think I really had coming
At
in
that time, yeah.
into it. That there was a history for it, and that being a world champion means it meant something back then, and it deserved a certain degree of respect. That if somebody's telling you to do something that has earned that, you need to understand that that's not a fucking easy thing to obtain.
Yeah.
And then when you start to get in that process, you're like, oh God, first I got to qualify for the nationals, and then you're looking at the totals to get to the worlds. You're like, how the fuck you do that? And then I'll let him speak about the training aspect.
Okay. Bob, tell us what you guys were doing in the
Actually,
gym.
mainly our process back then was, we stuck with triples or fives. Bottom line is, and we always try to make sure that you never missed your sets. You always want to make sure you hit your sets. Some days you can have some good days, some bad days. So if you did, you just backed off a little bit. And it wasn't really a rocket scientist, but you know how your body felt.
Yeah.
I mean, some of us had physical jobs and stuff, so you had to come in and be prepared. And if you didn't feel good, you just kind of just modified it a little bit more. So.
What was the basic setup like? 4-day a week?
Actually worked out 4 days a week. Usually on Monday we did heavy benches, some accessory work, and then Tuesday was usually heavy squats, and then Thursday we'd come in and do a light bench workout just to pump the blood in to your system, hope for injuries and stuff, and then Friday heavy deadlifts.
Okay.
So.
And tell us a little bit about the crew you trained with, and what time of the day was it? Like an after work?
Actually, it was after work. Usually around 4:30. We trained with me, Dave, a guy named Al Bittner, Scott McFarlane, and Norm Carroll. Which Norm is actually still lifting today, and he's totaling up to the 1900s now. So he's doing quite well. Another one of the guys I helped out. So mainly it's just we did after work. Everybody hooked up and worked out for a couple hours and had fun at it. We all ribbed each other. And, especially picked on Dave since he was a new guy.
You always need someone to load and unload weights.
Oh
Yes. So you know where I get it all from now.
Your turn. Let's do it.
One of the things that we talk about that's kind of like a core in what we do is kind of the live, learn, pass on. And Dave has kind of taught people that are now teaching myself and other people to lift. So it's nice to see somebody that taught him. Tell us about some of the people that you learned from.
Actually, I learned from, George Crawford and Jerry Bell. George was a world champion back in the 70s, one of the first ones. He got hooked up with Larry Pacifico, Milt McKinney, with a guy named Bob Matz that trained them for the first world championship, in which they won. So we come from a good stock back in Toledo there, for two world champions back in the 70s. I was lucky enough to make it myself. I felt pretty privileged of doing that. So, and I just try to help other people along the way. We had some really good lifters come out of Toledo. So.
And a lot of times when we see some lifters from your era, they're not getting around as well as you. What do you think you did that has kept you, other than the shoulder?
I got some shoulder injuries. I had some knee injuries. Bottom line is, you try to line yourself with good doctors. I mainly went to sports medicine doctors, chiropractic therapy. Just kind of let your body kind of rejuvenate after you get done lifting heavy. Take it easy, do the right things as much as possible. That's why I kind of stayed in the sport for so long. But now it's just a little by me, past me here, so it's like I'm just trying to stay in shape and hopefully help some other younger people when they come along.
Okay, let's pretend Dave's not here right now. Tell us what you thought of him and what kind of impressions you had of him.
Actually, Dave was a very, very thoughtful person back then. I mean, he was really kind. He did everything we needed to do in the gym. Didn't really question it, And if he did have any questions, he wanted to know why, but we would explain it to him, and he can accept the concept why we were doing all that. So he was a really good guy, and I'm really proud of what he's accomplished and what he has achieved in his life.
It's more a matter of, like I said, the respect issue that I was talking about is, you ask, you listen, and you shut up. You don't debate with. Yeah. The way I was taught, you don't debate with the world champion.
Yeah.
You don't debate with a guy who's taking his time to help you out to get better. And, Bob's one of the reasons why, I continue to put out the information that I put out to help other people, because, he didn't have to help me. He didn't have to help any of these other people, and a lot of the times that helping out extended past just the training when we were together. You know, if it was after a meet and he was taking a few weeks off, he's still in there.
Yeah.
You know, because we would have a meet going. And George was another one that I don't even know if when I was in there, he trained with George, and George was already kind of past his prime when I was in there. Crawford, I'm speaking about, and he was still in there, you know, giving tips, and you knew. I mean, they always had that hat on.
Yeah, and also another guy named Kenny Roberts was another guy that helped mentor a lot of us, which gave a lot of good information to Dave also. Another good friend that worked out quite well with all of us.
Yeah, and if you saw George, I mean, he'd have a tie-dye shirt on and this, this hat.
Welder's hat.
This hat. And he'd come over and he'd tell you, look, you need to push your knees out a little bit harder when you're pulling. I was pulling sumo at the time. Most of the other guys in the gym would probably just blow him off, like, who's this crazy old dude?
Yeah.
I'd be sitting at home just thinking about pushing my knees out the whole time I'm watching TV, because you got to respect who it's coming from and who he's created and who he brought up and what he accomplished. I think he was one of the first world champions in the area.
He was, yeah. Him and Milton McKinney in Larry Pacifico. So.
Okay. Other than you mentioned respect for people that have come before you, what other lessons did you learn?
Technique. It just reinforced the whole thing that I was taught. I came into the sport young, at 13 years old. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I was a 13-year-old that respected authority and everything else. There was a reason.
No such thing exists.
Yeah, there was a reason why my dad threw me in the gym with all these other guys when I was in high
Test
school.
their patience.
So when I was told all those things when I was first starting, I'm like, yeah, fuck that. We're going up. Let's work heavy. And as a teenager, you can get away with a lot of shit. You can do a lot of really stupid things. And even when I was training with him, I was still young and could get away with a lot of things. I'm not saying you're old, but you said he was historic. You already said he was historic.
That's okay.
I mean,
I understand it.
By the time I got with him, he already had his fair share of injuries. So I always had those guys who were hurt saying, look, what you're doing is fucking stupid. But never paid attention to it. I paid attention to it, coming from him, because I didn't want to end up, going into the prime of my career and then getting hurt. I knew all along, and I think we all know all along, long term,
things are going to happen.
Shit's going to happen. You're going to get hurt. You're going to pay a price. The longer you're in it, it's a guaranteed. My fear was I didn't want it to happen 3 weeks before a meet I was in shape for.
Yeah, that'd be a bummer.
Yeah, so that's why I listened in that regard as well. So it was reaffirmed that and taught that to me even more so. That technique is, the breakdown of techniques usually the main reason why somebody's going to get hurt. It's not because of the overtraining and a lot of the other things. It's your technique breaks, boom, something happens.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Okay. Well, Bob, I appreciate you giving us the time. Your wife has been calling,
Yes.
probably wanting to be picked up. So thank her for letting us grab you and throw you in front of the camera.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.